Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. For 24 years, I closely observed her, knowing exactly how she would react in such situations. I was used to the way her mind worked. She couldn't stand losing control, and her desire to restore order would inevitably bring her back home. I wondered what explanation she would offer this time. She took pride in her calculated approach to everything, so being caught off guard must have shaken her deeply. She always strategized ahead, leaving nothing to chance. Unlike her, my style was more straightforward. If something bothered me, I said it directly. It wasn't always the most tactful method, but it worked for me. My bluntness irritated her. It was hard for her to watch her carefully crafted plans fall apart because I might say something impulsively. Don't get me wrong. I usually let her have her way. Why? Simple. Most men don't dwell on the small stuff. As long as her desires didn't threaten our finances or relationship, I rarely saw a reason to resist. This kept everything running smoothly. She was happy, which meant I stayed satisfied. We both lived in our own versions of what happiness meant. But eventually, she realized that I too had limits, a point where I could no longer play along with her plans. One day, I overheard her talking to a friend. She called it my boiling point, the moment when my anger reached such a level that nothing else mattered. Not friends, not work, not even her. When I got to that state, I no longer cared about consequences or feelings. She even gave an example from my previous job to illustrate her point. I had worked at the company for 15 years. I was promoted, had excellent reviews, and my colleagues respected me. Then a new management team came in. They hired a consultant who, in just 3 weeks, came up with a plan that the leadership approved without hesitation. It completely changed how the company operated. At first, I wasn't worried. I had been there long enough to understand all the nuances of the business. But then came the shocking news. The consultant announced that our salaries were 30% higher than those at similar companies in the region, and the solution was to cut them. My salary would drop by almost $7,000 a year. I couldn't help but laugh. "Let's clarify," I said. "You're cutting everyone's salaries to the regional average? So we should keep working with the same effort or at 30% less?" I didn't stop. This company thrives because it fairly compensates its employees. They don't hire just anyone off the street here. To get this job, I went through 4 stages of interviews, including physical and psychological tests. Plus, we have strict attendance and safety policies. I paused to let my words sink in, then added, "Why would anyone go through all of that to work here if they could earn the same elsewhere with fewer demands? In the end, you'll lose your best employees, morale will drop, productivity will decline, accidents will increase, and instead of quality, you'll get mediocrity." My words hung in the air. 4 company representatives and the efficiency consultant sat across from me, looking increasingly uncomfortable, their faces flushed with irritation. Finally, one of them spoke. "The decision is final. The salary cuts will be implemented in 2 months." I smiled. "Fine. 2 months is enough time to find another job. Consider this my resignation." The room erupted into chaos, but I remained calm. The plant manager tried to convince the others that I wasn't serious, that I was just expressing frustration. But when 2 months passed, I kept my word. I left, leaving them in a panic, desperately trying to convince me to stay. They even resorted to threats, promising to ruin my reputation by telling future employers that I left voluntarily. I simply replied, "I already have a job." Time passed, and most of the old employees left, replaced by new faces at his company. Even 2 managers tried to entice me back with a significant pay raise. I smirked slightly, wished them luck, and left the restaurant without hesitation. Once I make a decision, nothing in the world can change it. My decisions may seem hasty, but they are never made on a whim. I always carefully consider my options, and financial gain is the least important to me. "I can live without money, but I can't live without self-respect," I often said. Looking back, I began to wonder when she started to believe that I would ever accept her being with another man. For years, she tested the boundaries of what I was willing to tolerate. There was that trip, a 2-week vacation with friends, some of whom had no shame, and one of them was even married. She came up with a convincing argument that time apart would benefit us, strengthen our relationship, typical nonsense. For me, it was just noise. I told her it was a terrible idea, that the thought of her lounging on a beach in another country, drinking with a group of women I could barely stand, was far from reasonable. But it's your life, I added. Do what you want. Just remember, everything comes with a price. Over time, she understood that when I said that, I knew she was making a mistake, but I was too tired to argue. If she decided to go through with it, she would face the consequences alone. One more thing, I said. I'll need my rings. If you're going to make yourself available to strangers, you won't be wearing them. She exploded, bombarding me with all kinds of arguments. I just sat there, waiting for her anger to run its course. While she raged, I made a few more decisions. You'll be too busy with your vacation to look for a new place. Should I pack your things for storage or send them to your mother's? She scowled, screamed, but refused to change her plans. 3 days before her departure, she returned to an empty house and found a note. I've thought it over. I no longer want to live here. Now you can leave without guilt, free from betrayal. Have a good trip. Leave the rings. They mean nothing to me anymore. Her reckless friends encouraged her to forget about me, but she spent 2 days trying to find me. I took some time off and went on a camping trip. I wondered if she had flown out as I cast my line, hoping to catch the big trout I missed last summer, when suddenly I heard a familiar voice behind me. Thanks for ruining my vacation, she said. As you can see, I didn't go. Are you happy? My fishing rod gave a slight tug. Maybe the trout had finally taken the bait. No, I replied. I'm not happy. Do you think I'd be fine knowing that if I hadn't stood my ground, you would have gone, had fun, while I'd be left hanging the entire time? Why are you here? To ruin my weekend too? It won't work, I continued. Want to know why? Because you won't stay. Go back home, or anywhere. Just stay away from me. If you don't leave, I'll call off the private investigator, and instead of proving infidelity, I'll just file for divorce citing irreconcilable differences. We could be done with this in 3 months. It's that simple. And then, finally, the big fish bit. The rod bent sharply. The reel screeched as the fish shot through the water, jumping and twisting. It had to weigh at least 8, maybe even 10 pounds. I quietly cursed, preparing for the upcoming fight. As soon as I plunged into the icy water, the fish thrashed wildly, tearing itself free from the hook, and with a powerful flick of its tail, it vanished into the murky depths. Her reaction was a mix of a startled cry and bubbling laughter, echoing across the lake. Although the water only reached my waist, its icy grip was relentless, especially in early April. I didn't rush as I made my way back to the shore. Maybe now you'll finally talk to me, I muttered, trying to keep my voice steady. I don't want a divorce. You need to understand that, she managed to say before I firmly pushed her into the water. Her arms flailed in the air, trying to keep her balance on the slippery mud, but she failed. She fell backward with a splash. It was hard not to notice how absurdly overdressed she was for this moment, and for a split second, her bare skin flashed through her short skirt as she hit the water. Obviously, she was trying to use her charms, thinking she could erase everything that had happened. But now, with mud and algae clinging to her wet clothes, her plan looked downright ridiculous. She gasped for breath, struggling to stand, but I pushed her down again. When she resurfaced the second time, I raised my hand to stop her. Listen, I said, keeping my tone even and cold. Don't speak. If you try to talk before I'm finished, I'll hold you under the water until you stop fighting for air. Got it? She stared at me for what felt like an eternity, then slowly nodded, her eyes widening in fear. So, what's left to say here? I continued. We both know that if I hadn't stood my ground, you'd be in bed with someone else right now. You can deny it all you want, but we both know the truth. Maybe now your little circle of friends can comfort you. You're going to need them, I added with an icy tone. Maybe you'll all take turns stealing each other's husbands. They've all made advances toward me, even the married ones. I'm done with it. Don't follow me, don't call me, and don't be surprised when the divorce papers come. Her sobs followed me as I walked away, her voice calling my name, but I didn't look back. It didn't surprise me that she contested the divorce. She hired a cunning lawyer who managed to get a hearing with Judge Harry Brown, a man who fancied himself a modern-day Judge Judy, convinced he could save any marriage with a couple of therapy sessions. I almost got hit with contempt of court charges for what I said during the proceedings. "This is ridiculous, Your Honor," I snapped. "I'm not interested in fixing anything. I don't want to work on it. I just want to be done with it." The judge's voice dropped a few degrees as she replied, "Mr. Morton, you don't have to agree, but you will comply, and I expect you to show respect. Understood?" My irritation boiled over and I snapped back, "Understood, Your Honor, but can I ask, didn't you go through therapy with your late husband? Did that change anything? As I recall, your divorce still went through. Now let's imagine a hypothetical scenario. If I said you were a terrible judge who understands nothing about people, and that your district would be better off without you, what would offend you more, my words or the possibility that I'm right?" I'd never seen someone's face change color so quickly. It went pale, then red, then pale again as she slammed her gavel. "Officer, take him into custody for contempt of court," she barked. My lawyer, who was also a close friend, quickly stood up. "Your Honor, please! Are you seriously going to jail someone over a hypothetical question? Think about how your opponents will use this against you in the election. He meant no harm." After a tense pause, she relented. "Fine," I said, trying to keep my voice light, though I couldn't resist adding, "but when you lose in November and return to life as an ordinary citizen, don't worry. I'll be sure to share my thoughts on your judicial skills with everyone I meet." I barely managed to stop myself from showing outright disrespect towards her, but she immediately retaliated, increasing the number of necessary therapy sessions from 6 to 12. The first few sessions were a real test, for her and the therapist. As for me, I evaded every question, hiding behind my love for literature, quoting novels and poetry instead of giving direct answers. Shakespeare was especially useful. His stories of deceitful women seemed too fitting for our situation. By the fourth session, something changed. Maybe I was just tired, or perhaps my defenses had weakened without me noticing. This time, when she cried, it wasn't those calculated tears she could turn on and off at will. Her sobs were genuine, and she couldn't hold them back. The therapist asked why I chose her as my wife. That question had been haunting me too. Did I love her? I had seen her true nature from the very beginning, back in school and almost throughout college, watching how easily she manipulated people to get what she wanted. That's why I never chased after her. I waited for her to make the first move, wondering what she could possibly want from someone like me. I wasn't wealthy, didn't have striking looks, and wasn't addicted to gambling or any other vices. What could I offer her? Our first date wasn't even really ours. It was a party at one of her friends' places, and to my surprise, her ex-boyfriend, the one she claimed to have left behind long ago, was there too. It didn't take long to realize that I was being used as a pawn to stir up jealousy, as a tool to prove she could have any man she desired. I figured it out within minutes. That's when I decided to change the rules of the game. The entire evening, I ignored her, chatted with her friends, danced, flirted, and did all of this just a little more freely than I should have, right in front of her. Her anger was palpable. Eventually, she pulled me outside, her eyes burning. "What the hell are you doing?" she asked. "You're here with me. Act like it." I couldn't help but laugh. "What do you think I'm doing? I'm playing this little game you set up for your ex. Too bad you lost, and now I'm just enjoying myself. By the way, your friends? They've already given me their numbers. Jessica even hinted that I should stop by her place after I drop you off." She wasn't used to being spoken to like that. Tears started to flow quickly, and back then, I couldn't resist a crying woman. I said I'd play the role she wanted, pretend we were on a real date. When we went back inside, she clung to me, her anger replaced by need. We danced, and somehow the tension dissolved. We ended up having a good time. I gave her a gentle kiss at her door when I dropped her off, fully intending never to see her again. But she wasn't one to give up without a fight. Little by little, she found her way into my life and into my heart. From the start, I made it clear that I wouldn't tolerate her games. We broke up several times before she finally understood. In the end, we got married. As a child, I had mumps, which raised questions about my ability to have children. When she became pregnant, I suggested we part ways, but she sharply scolded me for even thinking such things. I suggested we adopt, but she always had some excuse. Soon enough, I realized it was too late to change anything. Perhaps it was for the better. But gradually, counselor, she returned to her old habits, smugness, small manipulations. At first, they were barely noticeable, but over time, they grew. She could never understand that things like cars or furniture didn't matter to me. None of that had any significance for me. She looked content, or at least that's how it seemed to me, and I wasn't particularly bothered by it. But then things began to change. She switched jobs, surrounded herself with new acquaintances. The girls' nights out reappeared, but I trusted her, so I didn't give it much thought. Gradually, her evenings grew longer and she started coming home later and later. One night, she came back at 3 a.m., her hair disheveled, clothes wrinkled, lipstick smeared across her face. That moment drew a clear line. She knew she had crossed it. Her apologies were immediate, dripping with regret. She explained she had been drunk and swore it was just a kiss. I left, disappearing from her life for 3 weeks. During that time, she broke down, pleading for forgiveness through sobs, promising to go to therapy and swearing that she would change. I was weak, still tied to my feelings for her, though I couldn't fully understand why. Eventually, we reconciled, and for a while, things got better. She openly acknowledged her issues with control and made visible efforts to address them. She changed jobs again, distancing herself from what she called a toxic circle of friends, but it felt like she was merely swapping one problem for another. If her previous group was troublesome, the new one seemed even worse. Gradually, she began to imitate them. The girls' nights returned with double the intensity. Then she brought up a trip. I researched the resort she wanted to visit. It was clearly a haven for singles and those in open relationships. I was sure that if she went, our marriage would collapse, and she would break her vows. I tried to talk her out of it, but her replies were full of dismissive reassurances, which felt rehearsed and hollow. I reached my breaking point. I gave her an ultimatum: stay here and work on our relationship, or go on the trip and come back to divorce papers. She refused to cancel her plans, and I left before she could make her final decision. In the end, she didn't go, but by that point, it didn't matter anymore. I filed for divorce, and here we are. Yes, she regrets her actions. Yes, she agreed to therapy. But the main question is, will it be enough? Can she truly change? And more importantly, do I care enough to find out? That's what haunts me the most. In the end, I gave her another chance, clinging to the faint hope that love could survive. Why? Because deep down, I still loved her. But this time, I made her pay for it. She signed legal documents. Everything was split equally, and the consequences of any future infidelity were crystal clear. She left, taking only her things. It crushed her to sign those papers because she adored our house, our life together. But she had no other choice. For a few years, life seemed calm and balanced. Then, slowly but surely, changes started happening again. It began with small things, little knowing smiles that she thought I didn't notice. That's when I decided to hire detectives. 2 weeks later, I got my answer. Robert Taylor, a confident colleague. The reports described him as a man who preyed on wealthy women, looking for someone to fund his lifestyle. Attractive enough, I suppose, but something in his eyes troubled me. He saw her car, her jewelry, her polished appearance, and he saw a gold mine. He seduced her. She showered him with gifts, and they met multiple times. I never caught them in person. I handed the evidence to my lawyer. And then, on the night I knew they were together, I sent him a message. Urgent. Call me. No texts. She called me back a few minutes later, her voice trembling, her breathing uneven. What's going on? What happened? She asked, a note of panic slipping into her voice. Oh, nothing much, I responded calmly. Just thought you should know. I'm filing for divorce. Robert will stop by to pick you up and help you pack your things. There was a long pause, but I could practically feel her confusion through the phone. Leave the car and don't forget to put the jewelry on the vanity. Leave the house and car keys as well. Robert will handle the rest." The line was silent for a few more moments before she finally spoke again, her voice shaking. "What are you even talking about?" "I'm talking about that agreement you signed, remember? The one that was supposed to prove I was just being paranoid? The one where you swore you'd never cheat on me?" I paused, letting my words sink in. "I'm talking about those months you spent in bed with that disgusting guy. Room 534 at the hotel, where you wore nothing but a garter. Was it lavender or maybe purple?" The silence on her end was oppressive. I continued, now with a hint of mockery in my voice. "Live streams don't always get the colors right, so the shades can sometimes get mixed up. At this point, I could probably call you some insult, but I can't bring myself to do that. Not after you've earned every little reward." I could almost picture her eyes darting around the room, searching for hidden cameras. "Stop looking," I said with a smirk. "You won't find anything. And tell Robert that the leather thong he wears looks pretty ridiculous for his age. By the way, there's a popular website. I uploaded his picture about 20 minutes ago. It's already getting quite a bit of attention. Don't bother thanking me." I knew her panic was growing, but I remained completely calm. "Anyway, I've got to go. The locksmith will be here soon." Her voice cracked with desperation. "Wait, please. I'm coming over right now. I can explain everything. Please, I'm begging you." My curiosity was piqued. I poured myself a glass of wine and waited. Not long after, I heard her car pull into the driveway, and the sound of her heels clicking on the walkway grew louder as she approached the door. She entered, bewildered, her eyes scanning the room until they settled on me, sitting in the warm glow of the fireplace. The crackling of the fire was the only sound as she slowly walked over. I stood up and gestured to the chair across from me. "Have a seat," I said in a calm, even tone. She clearly wanted to argue but thought better of it and sat down without protest. "Wine?" I offered, pouring another glass. She nodded slightly, saying nothing. I handed her the glass and settled back into my own chair. "Give me a minute to get comfortable," I said, taking a sip. "I like stories, but they tend to make me sleepy. So if I nod off while you're talking, don't take it personally." She flinched at the barb, clearly hurt. Her lips formed as if to fire back, but instead her tone softened. "You know I love you, right?" Her voice trembled, but she pressed on. "I made a mistake with Robert. It's over. I ended it when I left." Her apology was pathetic, and I made no effort to hide my indifference. "Maybe you'll have better luck next time," I replied dryly. She flushed, her frustration turning into anger. "You're not helping at all," she snapped. I couldn't help but laugh. "Oh, sorry, I didn't realize you needed my help. What exactly do you want me to help with? Finding a new guy? Maybe someone at work will be interested, though their standards are pretty high. Maybe Robert will send over those explicit photos and I can help distribute them. I could even leave a review. You're not bad when you put in the effort." Her face went pale as she tried to figure out how much I knew. "You know," I added, "letting someone like Robert take pictures of you naked is a pretty risky decision. But that's just my opinion. So how about you stop pretending and tell me why you did it? Why are you acting so recklessly, knowing what's at stake?" "I don't know. I can't give you a logical answer. But maybe I can explain it differently. Imagine, I have this old pair of sneakers that I've had forever. They're completely worn out of style, but they fit me perfectly. The thought of parting with them is unthinkable. That's how I feel about you. It's like a constant, familiar love that I could never walk away from. And then one day, I see this bright red pair of 4-inch heels in a store window. I know they're impractical, that wearing them for long would be painful, but for a little while, they would make me feel amazing. For Robert, those shoes brought a rush of excitement, but they were never meant for daily wear. Do you understand what I mean? It was just a fleeting thrill, walking in shoes that make you feel spectacular, knowing you can always come back to what truly makes you whole. Do you get it?" I stood up. "Yes, I think I do. Thanks for explaining." I headed to the hallway and grabbed my jacket. She followed me, unsure. "So, you understand? You're not kicking me out?" "No. My lawyer says I can't force you to leave until the papers are served. And even then, I'll have to give you time to pack. He suggested about 2 weeks. So let's say 2.5, maybe 3 weeks, but don't expect to sleep in my bed anymore. I'll be moving into the guest room. I know how much you love that shower you made me install. Her jaw dropped. I continued. Look, if things stay calm, I'll even help you find a decent apartment. I'll cover the deposit, set up your utilities, and pay your bills for 3 months. You have a good job, but you've never been great with managing your finances. I'll help you budget. There won't be much left for spa days or expensive dinners, but if you pick up a few extra shifts, you can still afford to go out every now and then. I'll help you find a decent used car, but you'll have to cover the insurance yourself. Either way, you're moving out. I reached into the closet and pulled out my black felt hat, vintage, from the 60s. My uncle, a remarkable man, never left the house without his hat. When he passed away, he left me all 30 of them, perfectly preserved in their original boxes. They fit me like they were made just for me. I got them just as hats were coming back into style. I thought they made me look sharp, and a lot of the women at work agreed. My wife, on the other hand, always thought they looked ridiculous. I adjusted the brim and opened the door. She stood there, still processing my words. We need to talk more. We can fix this. It's 9 in the evening. Where are you going? She grabbed my arm. I pulled away. Shoe shopping? Maybe something sporty or an elegant pair of Italian leather shoes. If the budget allows, maybe both. Don't wait up. I smiled as I left, knowing she was already dialing his number. Elizabeth initially hesitated before accepting my offer, but after her lawyer carefully reviewed the terms, he strongly advised her to agree. I wasn't particularly interested in her car, so I sold it, split the proceeds, and used part of the money to buy her a modest used vehicle. To my surprise, she was genuinely grateful for that. A few years later, she was hit by an SUV. She was severely injured and now can only move around in a wheelchair. Our paths no longer cross. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.